action items. One, parking lot update.
In your packets, you have a chart showing the parking lot from last time. Christy Burchett had requested a microphone, and we were all set up to use the microphone in the larger room, then we found out we had been bumped, and we kept these microphones in this room. So it's our intention in the future to have microphones available. And then last time, the public had spoken about the private school meeting, and Dr. Thomas had asked if there would be an investigation, and of course that investigation was completed. And then Dr. Thomas had suggested that we might want to look at a report on the OAH process, the role of WESELPA, the district attorney, etc. And so Amy Fruity will be making about a 15-minute presentation on that topic on April 26th at a meeting.
Mr. Palmer, I don't know if you want to speak. You want to speak to one of these items?
Yeah. Am I going to show it now?
Yes.
I'm actually showing this on behalf of Rita Luke, who was unable to be here today, so I'll just read her comments. Dear Dr. Thomas and Superintendents, I appreciate the fact that the report on the incident at the private school meeting is on the agenda today. However, I, Rita Luke, am troubled by how the investigation was conducted. First of all, the complaint was filed by me, Rita Luke, against SELPA employees, and that should have been the focus of the investigation. Instead, the findings seem to focus on the actions of a member of the public. The WESELPA, or the San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools, do not have jurisdiction over the conduct of a member of the public. The main issues of whether or not WESELPA employees obstructed members of the public access to a public meeting, or whether or not they acted in an unprofessional manner, was lost in the investigation. I, Rita Luke, also want to emphasize that at no time did I make any physical contact with Karen Johnson. The contact was probably made by the lady who was trying to come out and told Karen several times to move, as she did not want to knock her over. Any allegations to the contrary are false, and I, Rita Luke, request you provide me with the name of the person who is making these false allegations so that I, Rita Luke, may pursue my legal remedies against that individual. I, Rita Luke, would also request you provide me, as a matter of public record, any documents related to the investigation. Perhaps the most troubling part of the incident report is the conclusion that the solution is to somehow restrict free expression by the implementation of a civility policy. The WESELPA, or the San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools, cannot supersede the Constitution, which guarantees freedom of speech and expression. The WESELPA cannot attempt to suppress constitutional rights by implementing a subjective policy which will surely seek to quash any message that is not in step with WESELPA talking points. There is clear case law at the Supreme Court level that prohibits such actions. It is obvious that the WESELPA, under the control of its employer, the San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools, discourages public participation and wants to operate in secrecy and outside of the public eye. I, Rita Luke, would like to remind you that you are a public entity operating with public dollars, not a private entity operating with your own private dollars. Thus, you have a duty to the public. The private school meeting in question is mandated by federal regulations and by the Education Code. Thus, it can hardly be considered a private meeting. I would also request that you provide me, Rita Luke, as a matter of public record, with the minutes of the WESELPA board meeting where it was decided that the WESELPA, and not its individual school districts, would take on the responsibility for conducting the private school consultation meeting. Thank you for your consideration, Rita Luke.
Thank you. Any other comments on the parking? Next is E2, maintenance of effort.
You know, Dr. Thomas, I'm so sorry. I'm allergic to mold and mildew, and this room smells of mold and mildew. Would you mind if I gave my other public comment and left? Okay, I'm so sorry. I appreciate your willingness to accommodate me. My other public comment is just regarding the agenda and the minutes, and it's that I've been troubled that it seems like we've moved backwards in an issue of trying to be transparent. I cannot access the agenda or the minutes on the website. When I pull it up on my computer, I get an error. I sent a copy of that error to Karen Johnson this morning. Hopefully that can be remedied, but as before, I don't know if you're aware, but agendas and minutes were available in the past on the WESELPA website, and you could look back and see things. Now you have to actually email Karen and ask for the specific date of minutes. And I see that as a step back in trying to be transparent and trying to work with the public. So I would ask you to look at that and see if we can't make that more accessible. And I at least would like, I'm one of a few handful of people that regularly attend this meeting, and I don't have access to the minutes. And I did get here 15 minutes early this morning in hopes to look over them, but it's hard in 15 minutes to peruse it and feel like I'm educated on what I want to talk about here. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd also suggest you look into the mold and mildew issue.
Please let Mrs. Aloof know there were some specific things that she was asking for, and we're going to need that in our email or something. Okay, Jeanette, maintenance stuff.
Okay, to start with the maintenance of effort, I prepared a little brief background there. If you are all willing to let me go through it, or should we just skip it in respect of the time that we have left? I'll just go through it quickly.
Sure.
Okay. Just to explain. Okay.
Is there information that we had in here?
No, you don't, but I could send it to the email if any one of you
No,
wanted.
just go ahead. I
Yeah.
mean, if it was something we'd already read,
Yeah. Just to explain what MOE is for, is because the state wanted to make sure that we use up our funds according to the conditions that are required by the state. So that's why we have this MOE for the state to check on how we're spending our funds. So it's like a condition that we have to meet it first in order to get our funding. So the basic requirements is that Part B will only be used to pay the excess cost of providing the special education services to the children, and it should be used as a supplement and not to supplant, the funds. And it should not be used to reduce the level of expenditures for the education of the kids. So it should basically be used for the excess cost of the program, and it's not supposed to be used for the entire program at first. So that's the main goal of the MOE. Next slide, please. So in order to receive funding for this year, what the MOE does is check our budget in 12-13 and compares it to the prior year, which is 11-12. They want to make sure that the 12-13 amount is bigger or almost the same as the 11-12. It should not go lower than what we had last year. So if we do pass that test, then we get our funding for the IDEA. And if there's an LEA that did not pass it, did not spend it, the 11-12 compared to 10-11, and the ending of 10-11 and 11-12, if they did not spend more in 11-12 than in 10-11, they are subject to repay the amount that they missed spending. So they're checking actually 3 years, 10-11, 11-12, and 12-13. So just to let you know why we're doing this MOE checking. So there's 2 checks in MOE, SEMB, wherein they look at 12-13 expenditures compared to 11-12 expenditures. So if you see here in the packet, we have the actual SEMB reports of the school districts. There's a summary on E2, it's item E2. I have a summary spreadsheet here of all the districts' amounts for the SEMB, and then, as you see here, we all passed for LEA and as a self-wide total. So we're okay with that. They're comparing the total amount of the state and local funding only from 11-12 to 12-13. So on the next one, we have the SEMA, which is it should,
I see the SEMA, I don't see the SEMA.
yeah, it's there.
Actually,
It was done the other way.
And SEMB is second in the packet.
Yeah. Okay, so 1,
SDMG.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages after it's there. The B. So yeah, we did it backwards in the packet. Yeah, sorry about that. So SEMB, to go back to the SEMB, we have the 12-13 there and 11-12. But in SEMA, A means actuals. So we're comparing the 10-11 versus 11-12 expenditures, the actual expenditures. So it's also looking at the state and local funding. And in the summary, you can see that all the districts in West End also passed the requirement. And also, of course, the West End SELPA as a whole also passed the requirement, the test. So just in case you might have a question, what if we didn't spend enough money? What if we're not budgeting enough money in 12-13 than in 11-12? There are exceptions. The exceptions are in case the teachers or the aides, they left, the personnel, they left your districts and they were replaced by new staff which are in lower rank, lower rate, step and column wise, or the enrollment of the children decreased. That could be another exception. Third is the termination of the services to this kid. For example, we used to have this program, but the kid left or the kid graduated from the program, so that could be a valid reason too. And the fourth is termination of costly expenditures. For example, we have services done by this particular agency, and now we're not doing it because the SELPA is providing the services by now, so it's cheaper now. So that means our expenditures became lower than what we had before because it wasn't existing before.
Jeanette, these are also the only way to be benched downward. So if you want to reduce your MOE, this is your only option to do that, is to actually track these costs and to report them, and that'll lower your MOE.
I have advised your finance directors that if they can see that they're spending lesser this year than last year, they have to take note of what are the changes already. Because if they wait till the end of the year, it's hard to go back and recall what happened during the year. So I think it's better to take note of that right away so we know what happened in the year. When the time comes to do it, it's easier to put in, to explain. Okay, for the next one is the excess costs. There's another requirement of CDE that we have to send them an excess cost calculation. The MOE, the excess cost, and Table 8 used to be required to be submitted in different dates, like in October, December, and February. This year, everything, all those three are required to be submitted to CDE yesterday, November 15, and I did submitted it already. So the excess cost is just checking and making sure that the amount we spend to the general education kids is the same as also spent for the special ed kids. And when we get the IDA funding, that is spent on top of that amount. They want to make sure that all the kids are all the same. They are spent with the same amount, general or special ed kids, and then the funding goes on top of the special ed kids, which really, in the end, we spend more for special ed kids than the general ed kids. So that's what they're checking and making sure.
And Jeanette, this is the one that stays with us. It does not go.
Yeah, the spreadsheet stays with me. Some of you may have signed it. I'm not sure if it's the CBO or the superintendent who signed them, but they stay with me, and just in case the auditors ask for them, I have them on hand. And just to briefly, I'll show you what they consider in calculating there. They get all the total expenditures, different funds from all the funding sources, remove all the federal funding, and whatever capital outlay and debt payments that was made, that would be the total expenditure. And on the next slide, they get the average annual expenditure per student, which is considering the prior year enrollment from CBEDS, and the average, the calculation that we did on the expenditures. We divide the enrollment by that expenditures we did in the first step. That will be the average annual expenditure for the student. That's how they figure out the amount. And then with the average expenditure per student, they figure out the number of full-time special ed student equivalent. So with that data, they end up with a total amount to spend before using the Part B minimum funds. Step 4, from the 11-12 expenditures that we figure out in the first step, minus that amount to spend before using the Part B, is the excess cost. And that excess cost should be positive, because if it's negative, then that means we don't have the excess cost. So that's how they check the numbers that we have. So the excess cost data is here. I just did a total for the SELPA. It looks like this one-page portrait form, which is table 8. Yeah, table 8. Which is 6 pages from the SEMB. So those are the totals of the entire West and SELPA districts. And for the table 8, which is shown 2 pages after the excess cost, we have this spreadsheet which came from CDE. It's just checking that we have how much districts are allocated with the local entitlement and preschool entitlement, and with those they can spend 15% of those entitlements for coordinating early intervening services. But what I've checked with the districts, I don't think any district offer that. So we end up really, just to show you there, but I still submitted the spreadsheet to CBE. So this is one way of checking everything that we do for special ed kids. There's actually not one way, there's 3 ways that they're checking. So to summarize it all, MOE ensures that LEA expenditure totals should be the same at least or more than the preceding year. And the excess cost calculator guarantees that equal amount is spent to the special and general ed kids first, and then the excess cost will be applied to the special ed kids, which is funded by federal funding. So the table 8 tracks the use of federal IDEA funding to provide coordinating early and intervening services to students if they pass the MOE. So those are the 3 things that the CDE uses to track and check our funding, our usage of the special ed allocations to the district and the SELPA. Is there any questions?
Any questions?
If you want to have a copy of this PowerPoint, I'll be gladly emailing them to anyone. It's just a summary. Actually, the MOE is really like a lot of information. I can summarize it into a very simple presentation.
Well, I wanted to, but I don't
On
have
the
time.
E3,
I
there's
gotta get out of here.
some changes on letter F, or item G, the amount. The beginning balance should be 2.7 million instead of 8.7 million, which is on item E of E3. And expend, oh, that's right, okay, so it's the beginning balance that's different. It should be 2.7 million instead of 8.7 million. So I'll just go through these briefly. 11-12 final SBCS's transportation excess cost transfer. Last year, there are charges that were done according to the report that was given to us by transportation. Normally, every end of the year, they have to make, they have to double check if the charges are correct or not, because there's changes throughout the year. Number of kids being transported, some of them, there's increases or decreases. So this is just to show you that the difference from what we projected last year and how it ended last year also. And for the 11-12 final CSDR transportation, this is for the California School for the Deaf in Riverside. There are a few kids that we transport for the districts. So this is also showing to you the 11-12 final transportation amount that we are going to have the final transfer this year. On the 12-13, item C, 12-13 initial 50% CSDR transportation, this number is based on the report by transportation for us, so it's the initial 50%. If there are changes within the year, we will make the changes or adjustments on the final transfer. Same thing with 11-12 final SBCSS facility return. This is for facilities used by the school districts to attend the special education classes like the Frost, Mulberry, and I forgot the name of the other one. But
Live Oak.
Oh yeah, there you go. So it's actually Live Oak, Mulberry, and Frost. I think Dr. Judson has a question on this one. Oh, he has a question on the E. So anyway, on 11-12, this is the final charges that they're gonna have to transfer from the districts into West End. Oh, it's the other way around, from the Western operations to the districts. In E, 12-13 initial 50% facility transfer, Dr. Judson had a question earlier. They reviewed the number of students, and they were thinking that some of the students were supposed to be in Mulberry.
At Floss instead of.
Oh, so I'm gonna have to double check on that, and any corrections done will be made on the final transfer. But I took note of that this morning. And 11-12 SBCSS year-end update is just to show you that there's an end balance of, so it should, oh yeah, it should be 2.7 million, the end balance here.
That's reported correctly. That's correct.
Yeah,
It's
so
not in G.
the G will,
Carry forward to the beginning balance.
yeah. So,
In G, it should be 2.7 instead of 2. Correct.
so any questions on those so far?
Now on G, Jeanette, did that change to 25 million?
No, those other two numbers are correct. The 30 million and the 25 million are correct.
I think it's a typo, I'm not sure what happened there. So, yeah. Okay, so on the H, the expat return, we have, after taking off the 500,000 reserve that we're required to set aside, we ended up with 332,000, which will be returned to the districts, and I have already emailed your finance directors on how much goes to each district. On I is 12-13 first interim budget updates, just to show, we have given this spreadsheets to your finance and the program people to show them what our budget, what our plan is for this year. Same thing with J, the 50% expat contribution transfer, which we think we're gonna charge this year. This one is based, the rate here is based on the rate. This one, the rate here is based on the rate that was approved last May by the council. And the K-12-13 initial 50% web-based transfer is also based on the new contract we have with San Joaquin COE on the SACE program. So I think we have 44,000 there that is being charged to us. So 22,000 is the first 50%. So it was broken down into the district and how much we're charging. 12-13 first quarter NPS NPA expat transfer. This is actual charges that we paid the first quarter. So we will be doing the transfers also on the charges to the districts, depending on how the kids that they send to us on which kids. So that's how we do the transfer. Do you have any questions on all of the items?
Questions? Move on then to E4, CAC bylaws, second reading. Mr. Atwood.
Yeah, I got a couple of comments on that. One of them is the proposal to enforce the civility code. Problem with that, there are a couple of problems with that. First off, it's unconstitutional. The courts are clear that people who are CAC members have the same free speech rights as anybody else does. And these civility codes are all very subjective and vague. And so it effectively is a way to intimidate people because you're not going to run into a problem with the civility code if you're agreeing, only if you're disagreeing. And it's also pointless because if you really are uncivil, nobody's going to want to listen to you anyway. You'll be punished by life itself. So there really isn't any legitimate reason for enforcing something like that. I guess the second point that I want to make, I made it the last time, but I'll say it again. There's also no value at all, as far as I can see, in changing who's supposed to do the minutes. The way it is now, it's set up that the chair is supposed to do the minutes, and the proposal is that the chair be compelled to involve the self-administrator and other folks. Well, the way it's worked is that in spite of the chair being the one who's supposed to do the minutes, Karen Johnson's always done the minutes and inflicted this on the CAC regardless. And so it's already, even with the present bylaws, the chair of the CAC has been excluded from the process to a great extent. Now the proposal is to change the language to make that even easier to do. There isn't any non-pretextual reason for doing that. And the new self-administrator, on the whole, has dialed down the atmosphere of confrontation around here since Joe and I were live. This is contrary. This is contrary to the general thing. This definitely dials the whole thing up because there isn't any reason for this.
I just need a point of clarification. Are you talking about minutes or the agenda?
I'm talking about the bylaws.
Okay, then what we're proposing is that the agenda would be prepared by the secretary.
Well, yes, changing the bylaws to do that.
Okay, but we're talking about the minutes, and I don't know that that's in what we're looking at.
Okay, well,
The secretary for the bylaws is supposed to prepare the minutes, but she does it in collaboration with Karen, because we have the office staff to assist.
Okay.
well
I just wanted to be clear on what your input is, because this proposal is having to do with putting the agenda together, not the minutes, so.
well, that's exactly right. It's in the agenda, yeah.
Okay, so you're talking about the agenda.
And as a matter of fact, in past times, Karen has just sort of set up an agenda and called the meeting whenever she wants, which is totally out of line with what the bylaws have to say. And so now here the idea is that the agenda is supposed to be, which the present bylaws say the chair is supposed to do. Those rules have not been heeded up to now. And so now they want to change the rules a little more to make it more the way it's already been. And certainly nobody who's involved in this can really see any point in this. The CAC is mostly a talking shop anyway. It's amazing we have to fight so much over the CAC. But really it is a talking shop, and the advantage to the superintendents of the CAC is to hear what people have to say, not to hear what the SELPA has to say. Because you can hear from the SELPA very easily without a CAC. So anything that's done to stifle the CAC and to manage it at the hand of the SELPA just defeats the purpose.
Thank you. Okay, we have item, this is the second reading.
It's been modified since we were here last time a little bit because we had a request, I believe, from you, Sean, to modify what's at the bottom, sign off on local plan reviews. Kind of sounded like the CAC chair has the sole responsibility to sign off. So we reworded it as follows: a CAC member's signature will be represented on all local plan reviews. Just to clarify, that's one of the signatures.
Yeah.
Any questions on?
I've got to get out of here.
So, with second reading, do we take action to adopt it next time?
So it goes back to Robert Peters.
Okay, we're going to move on then. I don't have any more cards for public comment. So business consent agenda, need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Moved by Carr, second by Judy. Any questions, comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Business action, the program transfer timeline extension. Susan.
I mentioned earlier that I've received, I believe it's 6 program transfer requests, and you have them, the letters, the actual letters in your packet, as well as a summary and a description for this item. So you can see there's a variety of requests, but the one that was unique and new was a Wanda's request to take back the clinical counseling program that's being provided through the SELPA. So at the CAC meeting, I had a discussion to get clarification, because I was getting the sense that not everybody was thinking that this came under the program transfer policy. So I asked for some feedback. Are you all aware September has passed, so you're past the timeline to submit a request, and if you also want to consider this, that the timeline has passed. And so there was a lot of concern that we hadn't been thinking that way, and that we do want the opportunity to consider, in many cases, taking this program back. So I told them that on their behalf I would come to you, and I also got the approval of FAC later that day to do the same, and asked that instead of them having to declare by December 31st a final letter that this is what we plan to do, could that just be extended for this one purpose, for the clinical counseling, to January 15th. And I need to be in conversation with Lisa Norman too, because when you think about it, not only does it impact the staff in my office, but they're all county office employees, who then it could have a domino effect on people in similar positions across the county. And so for all the HR purposes, I just have to be on top of this too. However, I can understand on the other side that if they want to explore this, that they're requesting time to do that and then submit their final decision on January 15th instead of December 31st.
So,
it
you
would,
haven't had a chance to talk with Lisa Norman regarding the timeline and how that will work,
no, I haven't.
human resources. So do you need us to take action on this today, pending Lisa's comment or your discussion?
That we could make an exception one time to have the clinical counseling outside of the typical program transfer, and by passing a couple of the steps, they wouldn't be notifying in September and then finalizing it in December.
For this year?
They just totally finalized it January 15th.
Okay, so we need a motion. Motion to move, and Holden, second.
Second.
President, and is there any caveat to your motion? Or are you moving as stated in the item?
To extend the,
To extend for this time only to January 15th, right? That's what.
To give their final decision.
No.
for the mental health piece.
Okay. Pending discussions with human resources to make sure that timeline will work. And we do have some responsibilities with the timeline. Staff. Yeah. Would you make a motion to include that caveat?
Yeah, I'm just, now I'm a little confused.
Or do you want to open it for discussion once you have the motion?
How do I make a motion that may or may not happen? I mean, you have, obviously you have to have a conversation before we can go further.
So don't we technically have to have a motion on the floor and then we can have discussion?
We do have a motion and a second. So we
Okay.
can have discussion.
So the question is, are we adding this piece about HR? And so I'm just asking, what happens if HR says no, the timeline's too short? Does that put everybody
And that's the caveat I'm
to
saying.
next year?
Yeah, if they can't be worked out for human resources has the timeline they need, then I don't really know how this can go forward.
Is this to allow the district time to jump in on the mental health piece?
It's to withdraw and provide your program yourself.
Right.
Right. And yeah, it will allow, instead, we normally receive like a prior in September and then we finalize it in December. I think what Susan's suggesting here is that timeline needs extended into the middle of January, 2 more weeks.
Because we've had districts indicate that they don't want it again, I want to too.
No, from what I understand, they didn't realize this was part of that process. So they didn't submit as they should have.
That's what I meant.
Right, right. Because they didn't know, they didn't perceive this as being part of
There are
that
other
process.
districts that want to.
Right. So that's the dilemma. I think it'll be fine, but I just want to be sure that human resources has enough time to do what they need to do. Because if these programs are pulled back, that has an impact on the county office. So if we can pull it, if she can get whatever she needs done in that short timeline, I don't think it'll be a problem. But I just want to be sure that she says yes to that before we solidify this.
And we have a question. So does that give Etiwanda then until January 15th to finalize their decision as well? So we also benefit from that extension?
Yes. But for any of the other ones that have been submitted, you still have till December 31st to change your mind and withdraw and not submit that final letter saying this is what I'm moving forward to do.
But for our mental health only, we have till January 15th to do that. To withdraw.
If you all approve it.
Do you want to leave your motion the way that it is? I mean, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, we made the motion.
If Lisa says she can't
do
get,
it.
she doesn't have enough time to notify employees, then here's what happens. We don't notify them, and that adds to the cost of fee-for-service.
So it's pending that direction.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll amend my motion pending that direction.
Would you second that? The amendment? Okay, any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
And this is an aside, I would have to have the representation of the superintendent on that work group to be there to hear the rationale for keeping or taking the program.
Okay. Any volunteers?
You start.
Anything we did a year ago.
All I see is your
What is following, Chief?
That was a long.
Who's not?
Yeah, there you go.
If you be the superintendent, we'd be happy to.
Thank you, Sean.
I'll add it to the mailing.
Any superintendent reports? Future agenda items? I have, I would like to hear about concerns regarding the minutes on the website and why that is. Because
We've been doing a portfolio, as you've all seen, and my thought had been that it would increase transparency and access because you can click on the file. You have two choices to see it as a portfolio, click on files, and it shows them one after the next. So if you want a particular document, you click on it, you open it, print that document.
and is there a certain software you have to have?
Just Adobe Acrobat. But you had to have that to read it the other way because they're all PDF
I
files.
think it's different, because I couldn't open it,
Talking about
Adobe Acrobat X.
previous agendas too, like last year in the way I understood it.
Oh, so
Yeah, we
archive
do.
stuff.
You know, we do take the old items off, and in the website, it has on the bottom to contact me, and so we can contact them. and send
So
whatever.
they're not
how many, how long, what's the timeline?
A year, they say.
We
A
keep
year, and
1
then we
year
start our
for the
new
minutes.
meetings, then I take those off.
All right, so if they want more than a year old, then they would contact.
So last year's minutes and agendas aren't on there?
They're all.
They are now.
So not a year at a time that you
So
start
it's
with.
not month by month or meeting by meeting, it's you take a whole year off and archive it.
Dr. Thomas, he was also talking about not being able to access currently, and that might be because I think he has a Mac computer, and I don't know if Mac is accepts the portfolio. I'm not sure.
True, because the old ones were PDF.
It has to do with that software, but, and I have trouble opening it on my iPad. And it may just be that I don't have the Adobe Acrobat X. I think there's a certain type of Acrobat that you have.
You just have to have readers to access it. You have to have the pro to make the.
It'll open on my desktop, but I can't get it on my right now. And so I struggle with it a little bit too. So it may just be that it's a software issue that you have to have that. It's a different kind of Adobe from what I can sense, and I'm no expert at this, but I think it's a different kind of Adobe that you have to have that software on your computer. So I think we ought to look at it and just make sure that it is, our public can open this stuff and make sure that it's available. The other one I had was, I'd like to have our civility policy come back. So actually, what I'd really like to do is have that reviewed by our CAC Captain Pat. Because I think we need to have some dialogue about this issue and make sure that whatever we agree upon and whatever's in that policy, we follow in the future.
So these are actually the parking lot items for today, the civility process review.
The civility, I'd like our civility policy to be brought back for, but I would like that, if possible, our subcommittee, our steering committees also review it and maybe make some suggestions. Any other items?
Are we going to be getting a report on county transportation costs increases this year?
I have contacted Ralph Alma because in the previous finance meeting,
It's pretty scary information.
they were concerned because there's all big inputs in the
30%.
projections in 1213. That's why we pulled it out of the packet, because we want to review it first before presenting it again. So most probably, yeah. According to Mr. Alba, they have increases in the contracts with the buses. So
7.5%.
yeah, so I'm gonna have to review again because it also includes, according to him, step and column increases for the staff. So I have to look at it and let your
The
finance.
drivers aren't our staff, are they?
Pardon me?
The drivers are not our staff.
No,
It's a contract.
no, we contract with, I think, a law, I'm not sure.
So I think it's important that we get some information. on
Yes,
that.
yes.
Thank you.
All right.
So you do want that at the next meeting?
Future
Did you want that at the next meeting or before that? That's a long time.
I don't been made on that. I don't remember we having voted on that kind of an increase.
Yeah,
So what we need is just for someone to review the contract. I don't remember if it was a multi-year contract or not, and just report that.
yeah, and they just want to make sure, because in the past, Carolina used to review everything, comparing these figures to the financial system budget. So I did not do that. So I'll do that, and then after that, I'll email everybody.
Mr. Johnson, or Dr. Johnson?
Just to follow up on the mold issue, this room can be tested to see if there is presence of mold.
So we probably just contact.
That's the county
Linda.
facility.
Linda Fundraker. Any other items?